Welcome to ChiroSphere, where we talk about all things chiropractic and some things, well, not so chiropractic. I'm Dr. Ray Foxworth, your host for ChiroSphere and CEO of ChiroHealth USA, the network that works for chiropractic. Today's guest is someone who's rewriting the rules on what it means to be a chiropractor, a media expert, and a health advocate. Dr. Chris Perron is a nationally recognized TV health expert, Virginia Chiropractor of the Year, award-winning speaker, and the #1 best-selling author of The Simple Plan, 7 Habits for Healthy Living. You may have seen him on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, or maybe even sharing the stage with the likes of Dr. Oz or the Surgeon General. But wait, there's more. What sets Dr. Perron apart isn't just his media presence, it's his unwavering commitment to simplifying health so it's accessible, actionable, and authentic. From leading a thriving practice to guiding chiropractors and other health professionals on how to amplify their message through media, Dr. Perron proves that the path less traveled can lead to greater impact, influence, and income without sacrificing your core values. Welcome, my friend.
Wow. Well, I'm excited to be here. Now I feel a lot of pressure. That was quite the introduction, and I appreciate it. It sounds like a lot when you lay it all out there.
It does. Yeah. As the saying goes, Mama would be proud.
Mama's proud.
Good.
She's proud without all this, but
Yeah.
it's
Well,
fun.
before we get started, I have to tell you, Chris, that from the first time that I met you, I was really impressed with your dedication to the profession that was demonstrated through your state association work as, I think, insurance chair. But yet you got out of the insurance game, and it's like, most people that want to get out of insurance don't want anything to do with that crap. But yet here you went from being in insurance to getting out of it, as I understand, and now you're helping all the other doctors deal with that. Why did you do that?
Well, that's probably a excellent primary example of just kind of how I tick. And I think most of us do when we look at our patients. I just seem to have spread it across a few different categories as well. And when you've been through something and you feel like there's a better way than anybody who is also looking for a different way, you want to go back, help them out. I certainly didn't figure everything out or much out on my own. I've had a lot of help along the way, as most of us have, and so it's just kind of my way of not just, hey, I'm good, and away I go. And the same thing applies with, honestly, the laundry list you just listed off. When I look at whether it be a colleague or whether it be a patient, if they're still in a state of confusion and an additional perspective and a little bit more clarity can help them out, then by all means, it's kind of what we should be doing. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I do it
No,
with insurance as well. Correct. I went cash in 2007.
awesome.
And so
Freedom Day, huh?
well, here's a funny quick thing, because I got on the board at the Virginia Chiropractic Association 11 years ago now. I was treasurer, I was president, and it's always a funny chat when somebody walks up to me at a conference and that starts asking me an insurance question, to which I do know a lot about insurance. And then somewhere in that conversation, they pause and go, "Hey, wait a second. Don't you have a cash practice?" And I said, "Yep." And they go, "But you seem to know a lot about insurance." And I said, "Yep." And then I just pause and there's this like 3, 2, 1. And a light bulb goes off of, oh, maybe those two things connect. Now, with that said, for the broader audience, if insurance is working for you and you got a system, obviously what you all provide helps straddle the fence in a very safe and appropriate way, as I know you know and your audience knows. So you do what works for you. And that's kind of my approach to health and everything else too. It's not for me to tell somebody they should do it my way. It's again, somebody's looking for another perspective, then we're happy to share it. And here we are with media perspective too.
Well, that is the definition of service, and I thank you for it. So let's back up a little bit. What led you into chiropractic, and how did you evolve from clinician to getting interested in the media and then writing a book? What was that? What was that like?
So I am in my 30th year of practice. So it's been a long journey, as many of us. But I got into chiropractic. I actually wanted to be a Navy SEAL. That was my original dream. I wanted to go to Naval Academy. My dad was in the U.S. Army. And in the process of applying, They've got many stages for anybody that knows. You do physical aptitude tests, you do a medical exam, you do a lot of stuff other than just sending your grades and your SATs. And the medical exam was the last piece of that puzzle, and figured it was a formality, 16 years old, healthy as can be. And the last thing in the medical exam was a color vision test, which I had never done before. So I thought that was kind of be interesting. And in that color vision test is when I found out that I am colorblind. So, like that, immediately, any dream I had of even going to the Naval Academy was a no go because you can't get in. Something about radars and dots are important. I would agree with that. So I didn't argue, but it's kind of like, okay, what now? So I took a ROTC scholarship with the Army, electrical engineering, bored to tears, did that for a year. But during that freshman year at college, my mom started working for a couple chiropractors in our local town and heard of them, but I had no idea, never been to a chiropractor. And after that first year, when I knew what I didn't want to do, there they were. The timing was right? Everything shows up when it's supposed to. And the sales pitch I got from these very energetic, maybe 30 somethings doctors with a thriving practice was, hey, why don't you do this? You can help people make decent money and retire young. And when you're 18, that's a pretty good sales pitch. I look back and I'm happy it's worked out very well. I'm still working on one of those bullet points, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. So that's how I got into chiropractic and went to Life, graduated in 96. Had a great experience there at that time, and away we went.
Gotcha.
Uh,
So, at what point did you decide I want to be able to reach beyond just my audience in my practice? You want to reach a broader audience. Um, I shared with you before we went live on this that I'd actually done some media training, though you wouldn't know that by all the bloopers that we had at the very at the very beginning. Um, but what is it that made you decide that that was important to you? Because I know a lot of chiropractors, and they are many, unfortunately, are very comfortable living the life of a hermit in their practice and wondering why their practices don't grow and why they don't become the go-to person in their area. And all of these things are wondered sitting behind their desk. What made you step out there, Chris?
well said on your part, and recognizing that. The trigger though was seeing the start of, if you don't have a presence on the internet, you're kind of toast already. But back in 2018, 2019, I was starting to feel that. And even though we had a presence, like you have a website, right? Check. That's about it. And I knew looking forward, you needed more than that to be able to really thrive, let alone honestly survive. And it's only snowballed since that time, the dawn of AI. The quantity of information out there is enormous. And so differentiating yourself, which is really the key to successful business, is huge, right? You have to have a voice. You have to put yourself out in a place where it can be seen. And then, okay, now that you're seen, if you get that far, what makes it interesting? And the best part is if you make it interesting, you get seen more, which is where a lot of stuff snowballed into. So COVID actually was the biggest real trigger as I look backwards in preparing for our chat, in that I had started leaning in a little bit, and then COVID hit, and all of a sudden making videos became a thing. I'd never made them before and sent them out to my patient base. But during COVID, I was not only trying to stay in practice and keep things going and help the patients through that crazy time, but also I was president of the Virginia Chiropractic Association at the exact same time. So I had two groups of people that were relying on me a lot, and I take that very seriously and humbly, and flattered by it, but that responsibility to be able to communicate. So I started making videos to each audience. I was getting a lot of good feedback. I learned a lot during that time, but that was really the start. And I also had in my head, like most of us, to write a book. And most people, it stays in our heads if we get to one. But I couldn't quite nail down what exactly am I going to write about. The general idea, sure, I knew I wanted it to be patient focused on information. And then my mom went and had a heart attack. She had a widowmaker heart attack, June 2020, right in the middle of it all. And I created just a little bullet point plan, 7 bullets for her to be able to follow. And as I drove 9 hours from DC, where I live, down to Hilton Head, I was just running through my head, what can I do to help my mom? And when I got there, I had it kind of figured out in my brain, those 7 bullets. And it's come to be known as the Simple Plan and the 7 Habits for Healthy Living. But the reason it became a book is because my parents actually followed what I said. And my mom went from 175 to 132 in 4 months. And it's not about weight, but we all know that excess weight is toxic. And she was just eating clean. She wasn't working out hard because she had just had a heart attack, but honestly, just eating better. But I do things for headspace and different things like that. My father had similar results. I was blown away by how well it worked. Her doctors are like, "Who are you people? We don't recognize you." But it was just getting back to basics, right? It's what we know about. But we too, as doctors, get caught up in what's the latest fad and the shiny objects and all that, and can lose sight of that foundation. So that is where my book came from, and everything else is kind of spun and blossomed from there.
Got it.
A lot.
So the book is written for the layperson. So for us docs that are reading it, they say, "Well, that's really way too simple." Well, that's the whole point. um, but writing the book and producing some videos is distinctly different than stepping on the stage on a news set. Uh, what did you go through? Because I've kind of followed you throughout this journey, and I know you were doing some interviews for some type of some TV program. I mean, you just kept hitting it and hitting it and hitting it. Um, what made you want to go from just doing videos and the book to actually carrying that to the general public?
It's a great question. In fact, you touched on that it's so simple for doctors. I had the privilege and honor of being a keynote speaker at Logan's Symposium a few months ago, and pretty good size audience, few hundred, and a lot of people came to get the book. And the most common theme, it's always interesting because you put yourself out there, and that's actually the theme of all of this, is you're really making yourself vulnerable when you do these things. And they actually agreed that you might know it, but if you don't have a plan, then we kind of just, wiggle around. It's like goal setting, right? We don't have a goal, we don't have a target. And so the odds of us hitting that target is pretty small, doing it by accident. That was very complimentary and interesting and insight. We all need a plan. I needed a plan too. I've done the same plan in there, as far as that goes. So it's just an evolution. When the book went out and I started making videos and doing different things, being very active on social media as a part of uh, the marketing of everything, if you will, it just kind of blossomed. I started having people reach out to me with opportunities, and it was just me saying yes, quite honestly, and just stepping into that role. But it was very on purpose. I've done training, a lot of training for TV. It's a totally different animal. It's so cool, though. It's a lot of fun. I've been on TV 4 times this summer in some pretty major markets. About to send out some pitch sheets to some channels to keep that rolling. And every experience is different, but TV is the ultimate because A, it's the hardest to get onto. And then two, it's the hardest to do well. And if you don't know what you're doing, I've learned so far, if you don't know what you're doing, then it doesn't look as good. But once producers know that you know what you're doing and you're trained, then all of a sudden you become a bit more of a commodity, to where they want you to come on.
They start bringing in
And
clients.
there's a lot of, it's very common. They call them pay to play. There's a lot of TV stations around the country where doctors or anybody professionally can basically buck up and almost buy an infomercial on TV. I have not paid to be on TV at all. I don't plan to. I want to do it the real way. And when I watch TV, you can tell, just in general, you can just watch the nightly news for 5 minutes and you can see who knows what they're doing and who doesn't. But I can tell you who does know. It's those TV producers. So it's getting on stages. This past week, I was up in Boston dropping my son off at college. And timing wise, I worked out to where I got to speak at Harvard on Friday and I spoke at MIT on Thursday.
That's all.
Those are two obviously pretty cool places and pretty cool situations to work out. But it's like a snowball effect. The more you do, the more people want you to do. And obviously, it resonates and says you must be doing something right, which is cool. But you hone the message, because the whole point is we're just trying to get information out to the public that's actually real. Because there's so much noise and there's so much stuff, and most of it is just got a dollar sign attached to the back end with who knows what kind of benefit truly to the patient or not. So it's really just been an inertia that anybody else could follow me along on too. But I can tell you, it is work, just like anything that's worth it.
You bet. Going back to it's important to have a plan. One of my favorite sayings is, whatever is simple to do is just as easy not to do. I mean, we know how to eat right, we know how to exercise, but it's just as easy not to. And so, unless someone really does have a goal, a plan, a strategy, all the knowledge in the world really doesn't do us any good. And I want to key in on one other thing you said that is so critical. You said, "I just said yes." That's actually the title of a presentation that I did, I think, for Illinois, and it was about my journey in my practice almost 40 years ago, getting pissed off at the medical community because they would not release medical records or X-rays from the hospital. This was on the heels of the Wilt case. I sent out an 11-page letter to 500 MDs in my city about who I am. Here's my training. Here's my background. Here's what I can treat. Here's when to refer to a chiropractor and when to never refer to a chiropractor. And the next day I got 2 or 3 calls that said, "I don't know who the hell you think you are. Don't you ever write me again." And I said, "Okay, you're off the Christmas list." But then I also got an invitation to speak at River Oaks Hospital, to the orthopedic group, the University Medical Center, to the neurosurgeons, and it just snowballed. And fast forward, because I said, I wasn't willing to accept the status quo. I had no idea that just by taking that step, it was going to open up so many doors. And so every time I was asked to do something, I said yes. And I got to tell you, as a 30-something-year-old chiropractor just coming out of chiropractic college, being asked to speak to neurosurgery residents and pain management residents, it kind of got in my head.
Absolutely.
Here's the takeaway: they don't know what we do. They don't know what our background and our training is. And for those docs that are willing to take that step and get outside of your comfort zone, that's really when life begins. I have a little pin my daughter gave me when first time she ever saw me speak to over 1,000 people. She gave me a little pin that says, "Life begins at the end of your comfort zone." And
Mm.
I can tell you, docs, if you'll get out of your office, get out of your head, stop talking just to ourselves about all the problems, and just put yourself out there, just say yes. My gosh, the difference it can make in your life, in your practice, the perception of chiropractic, it is a complete game changer, in my opinion. That's why I wanted to have you on, Chris, because you're one of the few that has been willing to step out there and go through this, and it's having a huge impact.
It is, and I'm going to touch on plenty of things you just said, because we as a profession, I feel, lives in an echo chamber. Right, we get together at conferences and they're fun, and we talk to each other. We're like, yeah, yeah, and we're all riled up and pumped up and all that kind of stuff, which is excellent. Like, that's necessary. But if it doesn't penetrate out to the public, then what's the point, right? It's no different than being the best adjuster in the world and nobody knows about you because you have no presence for somebody to come. It's we have to have both. It's not enough to just be a good doctor. You have to also market it. In fact, I would very much say that it's more important for you to market it, because you take somebody with a good marketing plan that maybe, I don't want to do any negatives, but let's say somebody's just not as good. Maybe it's just a drug commercial, right? We'll use that as an example. It's like, well, they're marketed like crazy. And so people are drawn towards all that marketing because that's what's in their face and that's what's working. And, you watch all marketing when we see it actually is a term coined by a mentor and coach of mine called celebrity entrepreneurship. And that, in a nutshell, is there are studies that have been done that people trust celebrities more than they do their own family. It's like factually proven, right? Why do we see every product under the sun, whether it be Patrick Mahomes with State Farm Insurance, or Travis Kelsey rolling up his sleeve getting his COVID shots, whatever. They don't know squat about anything, but they're out there plugging it because it works. And not that we're gonna realistically rise to that level of celebrity, but celebrity in the sense of what makes you special, what makes you interesting. And that's really what this has been snowballing, and purposely and strategically now for me. I didn't go to MIT and Harvard by accident.
No,
It kind of is a nice little pictures, visuals, factually true. I did. I went, I spoke, got great applause, got an award even for being an outstanding speaker. And that's all cool. But if you don't think I'm leveraging those words, MIT and Harvard, well, you're nuts. That's the point, right? Because to the lay public, my patients last week, what are you doing this weekend? "Oh, I'm heading up to Boston, drop my son off. And I'd be speaking at MIT on Thursday and then Harvard on Friday. And in fact, at MIT, I'm going to be speaking with Michael Richards. Kramer from Seinfeld was there. And you see all these heads rise up like, wow, MIT and Harvard. Wow, our doctor's special. Well, do you not think that that is going to have them be more likely to refer more people in? Obviously,
absolutely,
right?
positively.
So we have to get out of our little echo chamber where everything in chiropractic just stays in our bubble, and then we complain why we aren't growing. Well, the chiropractic story 100% is where it starts, but it's not where it ends. It's where we've evolved and we've plateaued as far as the volume of people we see collectively, let alone individually, based on pretty much just the chiropractic story. And that's great, but we need more eyeballs, and the more stuff that gets out there, and it's just only building as far as the internet, then AI is just going to make it explode. And when we're most known for somebody's crazy TikTok videos where they're either doing something their malpractice insurance probably is just fringing over, or rolling around with a good looking woman in Lycra. I mean, really? That doesn't build it. So it's building in a credible way and purposely getting out, speaking in important name brand places, being on TV, having a best selling book that actually looks if it was in Barnes and Noble, which it might be someday, you wouldn't walk by the book and it doesn't make sense. For the self publishing days of everybody's got a book. Well, most of them look like you self published it, and mine is self published, but it was assisted with a publisher. So we got to look professional, but there's ways to do it. It's just a matter of, lifting up our heads and putting a little energy, a little bit of effort, a little bit of investment in ourselves to be able to do it. And there's a lot of benefits to the profession as a whole, and a lot of benefits to us individually if we step into that space, I can tell you.
All right, so let's be real here. I know the impact that it can have. I've lived part of that, a little bit different angle than you went at. But let's face it. You mentioned some of the TikTok docs, and it's not just in chiropractic; it's in other professions as well. And if we're honest with ourselves, there are some of our colleagues, and this is true in every profession, that we just really don't want on television. For whatever reason, you make up the reason, fill in the blank. So for someone that's thinking about, boy, I really need to do this, or I kind of like this path that Chris has laid out, what's the first step that they should begin taking? Are there coaches? Are there training? What resources could you pass along for those that might want to follow in your path?
Sure. I'll put out there, and you can put out there my personal email and phone number, because I'm happy to chat. It's a very narrow window. My primary coach would definitely be one that I would recommend. I've been at it now for 5, 6 years, to where I actually have started to collect chiropractors who want to do this, to where I'm setting up basically I'll call it a mastermind, but really it's a transformation where you get everything from, it just lays the foundation of what the path is. And I'll be doing it I haven't picked a date yet because I'm getting applications and seeing when people are available, and I'll kind of make a call. But it'll be a small group. It's not something you can just figure out on your own, and I don't mean to push it towards me. I'll just refer people to my coach as well. Happy to do it, but I don't know of anybody else. I feel lucky that I tripped over what I tripped over, but I also know what I know now, and it's me just sharing the path, making it a little bit faster, make it a little easier, make it a little cheaper, but just getting out there. And it isn't one thing to start though on your own is to just start making videos, but thinking about how. Check out my website, chrisperron.com. Check out my YouTubes, Dr. Chris Perron. You want to see it as an example, go back and look at some of my older videos from a few years ago, and then look at me now, right? So this little getup I got with scrubs and a white coat, I wore it on here purposely. This is my costume, literally, right? Because this is a visual media as well as audio, and that's important. I hadn't given it much thought. This was created during the time and evolution. In fact, my first TV appearance, I had on a blue shirt, red tie, and this white coat. And then we moved to scrubs because the colors pop, right? If you just look at it visually, I'm on TV, the colors pop. If you're just cruising by your television and you look out of the corner of your eye, you see a guy in scrubs and a white coat, doctor instantly, right? So it's instant credibility, but it connects with an additional sense versus I can look good in a suit. I got some nice suits. I have expensive clothes that look nice, but they don't work as well. You can get scrubs and a white coat, a nice one that fits you, but just starting to evolve. So I would say just checking out my site if you want some examples of what it looks like and just compare them to what you currently know and what you see and come up with your own opinion because it's going to be yours. But you touched at the beginning about authenticity. I can't be anything but. So everything that ever comes out of my mouth, it's me. And so the same thing goes when I go on TV or on a stage. It's the unabridged truth. I'm not beholden to anybody, but I care about my patients. I care about my colleagues. And so I'm not going to hold back in just telling you the truth and what gets you there. And it is a lot of work, but it's 100% doable. I mean, I'm only a couple steps ahead of the average guy. I still have a practice. I still see patients. This isn't my full-time job. And most of the people that I can think of, which aren't many in our profession, that have kind of evolved in the media, that is their job. And that's awesome. And they do a good job. But that's not us, right? So my path, I think, is a lot more akin to the person who's still practicing and like, how do I do both?
Well, hang tight while we take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Welcome back to our podcast with Dr. Chris Perron. Having a great time getting to know this gentleman better. I've known him for years now, but it's always good to get the rest of the story behind someone. We run into each other at conferences and things like that, and you see each other for 2 or 3 minutes, and then it's next year. So I enjoy going a little bit deeper. What are some of the biggest mistakes healthcare professionals make when trying to get media attention? And I'll follow that up with, what's the one thing you did wrong that you, in retrospect, went, oh my God, I can't believe I did that?
I'll go with the first. What do most people do wrong? I'd say most people outsource it and make it not personal. It's not you. So it's the same. And I did that as well. I'll put that out there as, I don't know if I call it my mistake, but there's a few website companies out there. We all have the same content, just with a different skin and a few different pictures. Better than not having a website, 100%. But the reality is they all kind of look the same and have the same content. And if we think we're that special, we're not. And again, as the volume of content just gets a bit more and more on the internet, we're going to be harder and harder to find if we stay in that little bubble. So you need to make it about you, what makes you special. And you really got to think about it, right? What's your niche? I can tell you one of my niches in the office is all I adjust is activator. But that's a terrible sales pitch to most patients until they experience it because it's weird. Like, it's not what they expect, right? They expect what they've seen on TV or maybe they've experienced before in most cases. And so if I give them something that they don't know, they're going to be confused, and the confused mind says no. So I don't really advertise that. They experience it and they like it, but you can't do it ahead of time. So I guess that would be the other big one is look at it through the patient's eyes or your audience's eyes. For me, it's the patient's mostly. Try to step into their shoes and go, what does the average person know? And really, they don't know much. So they're starting from scratch. So you got to give them baby steps. Your whole goal is just that they pick up the phone and they call, or they send you an email to make an appointment. So how can you keep it that simple that it just triggers them to give your office a call, not just whomever? And you just look and see how high you rank on Google. If you're not that high, there's your first sign that something's missing, and we want to switch that up fast because you're only going to get lost in more and more stuff if you aren't putting out very unique content.
Yeah, going back to something we were talking about a few minutes ago, and I don't know whether it was Dan Kennedy or Dan Ogilvy, one of the big advertising guys that says, the best marketer always wins. Not the best practitioner, not the best restaurant, not the best, the food, but literally the person that can spend the most in marketing and advertising. Again, from a financial standpoint, they always win because like you said, you could be the best chiropractor in the world, but if nobody knows about you, how many people are you really going to be able to help? And so I don't think that it's optional. I think that it's mandatory that we do this, and certainly the medical profession is so far ahead of this curve with us. But I live in Mississippi. We're always talked about as being 10 years behind the time. Well, you can look at that as a disadvantage. Yes, it is sometimes, but sometimes it's a great advantage because I don't do the stupid stuff that I see people did 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
I've learned from their mistakes. So there's not a lot of guys or ladies in our profession, Susan, or Sherry McAllister, certainly one of them that is, but
Absolutely.
that really have gone down this path and really made such a huge impact. I want to take it down to your office level now. Since you started doing media and the book tours and being able to mention that to your patients, what direct impact have you seen in your practice?
I've raised my rates 28% in about a 3-year window.
Most chiropractors don't do that in 30 years.
Yep. And, other than for like 3 days and then nothing. Right. And that's the starter set of what I look at all of this. Because what you're really doing is you're trying to build your credibility in their eyes. And it doesn't matter if you are credible, it matters how they see you. Right. So these are just tangible outside things. There's a reason that Us Magazine, People Magazine, all that stuff is so popular. Now, again, I'm going to keep my ethics and my morals intact as I do this, and that's a personal choice. But but that's really what it comes down to is what makes you interesting. And so again, you're going to get more referrals because they have something to talk about. It's funny. We have on our re-exams, we have kind of a wide open question we ask everybody of what do you like most about the office? In the 20 plus years I've been doing it, I've never had anybody write down anything about their clinical improvement. They get it. They definitely get the improvement. It's always about staff's nice or the office is clean, something like that. And what that's taught me is that when they come in and we evaluate them and we say, hey, this is what our expectations are if you do what I say, and then it just happens, well, then there you go. So what we need to do is have more than that. That's kind of just your basics of like, hey, you get people better. Obviously, that's our whole point. But as crazy it is to think about jumping through these hoops and loops of a book and possibly television and podcasts and all this stuff and getting out there. Well, I got pictures in my office. I got a picture of my book with me in front of it is on the Jumbotron in Times Square. I've got
Not
pictures
too
with,
shabby.
was that?
That's not too shabby.
No, it's not too shabby. I got a picture of me in the Harvard Club of Boston. Just happened on Friday, but that puppy's going to be up on the wall with Martha Stewart, Ice T, Jerry of Ben and Jerry's. Who else? Dr. Oz, Dr. Drew, all these people, and then all these interesting places. And it's just eye candy. And so when they come home, what are they talking to their friend about? Hey, my doctor does. You think they're talking to them about clinical stuff? No, because they can't explain it anyway. So it makes it easier for them, honestly, to.
Yeah. When you mentioned people, for whatever reason, identify with celebrities, I mean, it is the ultimate third-party endorsement. They may not know you from Adam, but to the average patient, you know them, you know that celebrity, and it absolutely impacts credibility. And of course, as we also learn, you got to be careful who you take pictures with over time, and make sure they're stand-up folks.
Yes.
Let me ask you this: any new projects on the horizon?
I am launching an online platform called Dr. Chris Perron's Office Hours. It's going to be a weekly webinar that is going to be a subscription-based service for my patients and the lay public. It's a spinoff of, or it's a continued conversation of the Simple Plan, 7 Habits for Healthy Living. And we just get into, what's real, what's happening in real life now, as well as trying to hone in. It's going to be interactive, so I take questions and all. So the anchor is going to be a weekly webinar that'll be recorded and archived. But I have cooking videos on there, me cooking, showing people that you can eat normal food and delicious food. And a lot of people don't know how to cook, and that's their obstacle. So that's why they get takeout. So kind of a little bit of Food Network. I got exercise videos as well. And really just building this library and this go-to source of everything other than coming and laying on the table in the office, because obviously they have to be physically present for that. I get asked a lot about, as I go around the country, I've been on TV in California, Colorado, like all over the place. And so obviously most of them are not going to fly over to DC to be seen by me, nor do they need to. I've referred plenty of people to a lot of you out there in their local areas. But all that other stuff that's also important, like how to eat healthy, but what's the plan for it? Back to, you got to have a plan. We all know we should eat healthy. We all know we should hydrate. We all know we should exercise. But once it becomes defined and in simple terms, and that was my litmus test for my parents, it couldn't have been complicated. They had to be able to do it on their own, but it also had to be realistic to where they wanted to continue to do it for the long run. And we're 5 years later now with mom, and she hasn't gone up. She stayed within a 10-pound range of that kind of base level. And it's not, again, about weight, but it is a metric to keep track of if your healthy habits, are intact. And that's the reason behind you being whatever size you might.
So I've got some just for fun questions. What's the worst job you ever had?
Oh, worst job. It's a running joke with all my friends. I've had like every job under the sun when I was in high school and college. I worked 2 or 3 at a time. Kind of back to that saying yes. Worst job. Worst job was front desk at a really tiny gym when I first got out of chiropractic school, as I was trying to get the real work rolling. And it was just, it wasn't enough exposure, and it occupied a lot of time. And that frustrated me because I knew it was holding me back from doing what I want. But I'm a hard worker. I'm I don't mind working.
Got it. Who's your hero and why? I noticed you recently did a post with Dr. Slavinsky.
Yes, a couple days ago was his anniversary of his passing. I've had a lot of people on the way. I'll go with Dr. Savinsky actually, because he really was the most pivotal person in my path. Uh, he he opened my eyes to a much broader world outside of just, again, the normal churn of what we do collectively in chiropractic. And his entire point and basis in education was all about finding more about you, becoming more authentic. And the more you step into that, Your confidence goes up. You speak a little clearer. You stand a little taller. You communicate a heck of a lot better with other people because if you can know more about you and you can see it consciously more and more, then you're going to be able to better understand how somebody else is taking what you're giving, and it's just profound, the difference that Dr. Zawinski had in my life. And E-Myth Chiropractor's there. Excellent book. And Life the Manual was his original book. And that was like reading gospel when I read it. It's like I just agreed with every syllable. So we became an excellent match, and
Let's say
super duper thankful for him.
one final question. What talent do you have that most people don't know about?
No, don't know about. To say the one a lot of people do is I say yes and jump in with 2 feet. I'm not afraid to touch the third rail, but that one I've exposed too much. Well, maybe found out today. I'm actually a really good cook. I know how to cook. I cook well. It's because I like to eat. I have a really good palate. And I don't eat out a whole lot because most things I can make better than what I'm going to go pay for. And I know the quality is going to be better. So if I eat out, it's for a special occasion or something like the one thing I go out for is a croissant because they're a pain in the butt to make. Way too much work for $3 and a delicious croissant. But cooking, that's my
Good deal.
secret
Well,
super.
thanks so much for spending some time with us today, Chris. And thank you all for listening to the ChiroSphere podcast. Please subscribe and share the podcast with your friends. Be sure and let us know who you'd like to hear from in the future and what topics you'd like us to cover, and we'll do our best to deliver. Docs, if you're offering discounts of any kind in your office, you need to make sure that you're not breaking state and federal rules and regulations on dual fee schedules, inducements, anti-kickback violations, all of which can lead to serious fines and penalties. We can help eliminate these concerns by using our profitable discount strategy, which ensures that any discounts you offer are 100% compliant and, most importantly, profitable. There is no cost for you to join our network, and the first step starts with a no cost, no obligation phone call to find out if we can help you, like thousands of other doctors nationwide. Many of our doctors have seen a 20% increase in their revenue and a 50% retention of patients who are part of our network. Over the past 17 years, over 7,000 chiropractors have helped over 4.3 million patient family members get the care they need at a cost they can afford. If you want to increase your revenue and retention and practice with more peace of mind, call us at 888-719-9990 or visit our website at chusa.com, that's CHUSA.com, to find out why ChiroHealth USA is the network that works for chiropractic and you. Thanks so much, Chris. I enjoyed it.
A pleasure.
All right.
Anytime.
Everybody make it a great day.